Welcome, friends, brothers, and sisters, to our channel, Myths and Legends. Welcome back to our channel. I hope you watched and enjoyed our first video as it lays out the foundations of what's to come. I'm going to begin in this video our first episode of the Exodus series from the Old Testament. As we go forward with Exodus, I want you to know that this is a foundational story. And all stories that are going to come after this, you're going to see very similar patterns within. So the first thing that we have to examine before we jump into Exodus is the God of the Old Testament. The God of the Old Testament, the God of the Israelites, he's a new kind of God. All gods that came before him were gods of a place, a specific thing, objects, themes. This new God is a culmination of gods. It was our move from the polytheistic to the monotheistic. So essentially this God is not bound by time or place. And there's a really great reason for that. And it has a lot to do with the patterns of the story. In Exodus, we find that the Israelites are imprisoned during the epitome of the Bronze Age. God sets them free onto a journey towards the future, a promised future, the promised land. This God is the God of an open future, and that's why he's the God of no name. Because to name something is to pin it down, to hold it in one place. To name things is going to be very important to the people of our story. Look at how God asked Adam to name the beasts in Genesis. To name the beasts was a way of participating in God's creations. To name something also has a relationship to the purity laws, which we're going to cover a little bit more in depth later. But it has a lot to do with keeping the purity of something, or at least a balanced purity. It's meant to teach us the importance of a name, of a label of something, to keep something separate by drawing them in and taking other things and pushing them out, keeping them on the fringes, out in the chaos. Yahweh, the name revealed to Moses by the Lord, means I will be what I will be, the God of an open future. With him we can shape the future. We have the choice and the will to go off course, or to know if we are on course and to follow that course. This is to be the endless task of the living. Exodus, then, like many biblical stories, highlights the course and reveals the possibilities when making choices during the vital turning points, as the theologian Paul Tillich referred to them as kairos, getting things at the right time, to put them on course, or to know when they're off course. These turning points and actions taken in these moments are not to be seen as moral choices or immoral choices in some cases. We can go up the mountain or descend down the mountain, as you'll see happens to Moses and his people again and again. But even the fall can be useful, as we can come down with new knowledge, newfound wisdom, tablets of law or explanation, realization to the patterns, much like descending back into Plato's cave with our new discoveries. Yahweh is the Elohim of the Elohim. It's not just another name, but a sort of ranking position. Elohim refers to spiritual beings. Yahweh is the chief, or the Elohim of the Elohim. This monotheistic religion was born out of polytheism as tribes brought their gods together with their traditions. Gods have utility amongst their people, as they show them modes of being that are useful in survival. Yahweh may be attached to the Mesopotamian god Marduk, for example. Marduk has eyes all around his head, so when acted out, his people hold the value of being aware, to act out his legend by taking chaos down one piece at a time and creating a livable world out of it. A good lesson that bleeds into Genesis. Amongst the many tribes there was a struggle to choose the most ideal god, to find the tip of the structure, the most sovereign being, the best way of being. Naturally, many of the gods were broken down, and one god was found within. And in doing so, they were able to dethrone the mortal gods, like the Egyptian king, or later with the Holy Roman Empire. To put the ideal above any man. That's why this god is so useful in times of revolution against totalitarian powers, who see themselves as sovereign or divinely appointed. To put an ideal up above any mortal man. That's why this god is so important when it comes to revolutionary movements throughout history. God can be used to fight against totalitarian regimes or against any powers who see themselves as sovereign or divinely appointed. We see this play out in Exodus and in human history time and time again. This is one aspect that makes the Bible divine. A book that is capable of combating actual worldly evils, whether you believe in it or not. It has accomplished this again and again. So to look at this as a mere tall tale is not viable or accurate. You can also see why this was such a powerful tool for the American Revolution. It points to why the Declaration of Independence itself holds sermons of the time within, why it played part in our formation of law, our spirit of individualism, and our desire to dethrone a sovereign who is immortal. In the heavens, these Elohim are referred to as the Divine Council, the sons of God, the hosts of heaven, the signs, the sun, the moon, and the stars. The demoted gods of things passed on by the tribes, but trumped by the final Elohim. Even the story of Marduk tells of the evolution of the deities. As Marduk is voted into power by the other Elohim, they are invited by Yahweh to help make decisions and become a divine council. He wants to share his authority with them, like he wants to do with us in our acts of creation. But of course, there have been many rebellions against God. And one, the Tower of Babylon, was the moment where the divine council, too, was against God. Humans wanted to define good and evil for themselves, and the spiritual beings wanted to be their own gods once again. When Moses and Isaiah refer back to the story of Babylon, they speak of the spiritual struggle, talking about how the divine council no longer desired to just be signs of authority, but to be authority themselves. With the humans, they were scattered, Babel, different languages and various gods, these beings who, from the Hebrew and Christian perspective, deceive humans. As it states in Deuteronomy, the rebel council member of the divine were too scattered, gods of sex, gods of war, gods of things, objects. Many who had tribes worshipping singular aspects of the material, a non-whole view of the world. A view that often leads to genocides, like in Exodus, where the Pharaoh asked for the males of the Israelites to be murdered at birth. You can see how this story is mirrored in actuality. You can begin to see how these patterns are crucial to the understanding of these writings. It's not just a tale of morality, of fiction, of mystical, archaic things. It's not primitive or silly. It is still true some thousands of years later. You can see why it captivates the masses, and why it is feared by so many regimes. Exodus is the second book of the Bible, picking up where Genesis left off, where Abraham's grandson, Jacob, had led his 70 people into Egypt, where their family was accepted. The king of Egypt offered them to live there safely, but some 700 years later, things had changed. The Israelites were exceedingly fruitful, a deliberate callback to the promise that God had made to their people. In Genesis 1:28, in the Garden of Eden, humanity had forfeited this blessing and entered the world of history and the suffering of many things. Abraham and his people would become the chosen people to regain this blessing for humanity. So you can see the utility of their faith at play, the results of their traditions and practices, leading them to high birth rates and long, fruitful lives. So I hope you join us here again on our channel, Myths and Legends.